spent the last 4 weeks looking at the introduction to Ecclesiastes. Again, it is one of the least and misread books of the Bible. Perhaps the only book to compare would be Song of Solomon. But it's more often than not misunderstood, misinterpreted. From chapter 12, verses 9 through 12, we see that it is a sermon. And Solomon takes the term preacher to himself 7 times throughout the book. Notice in verse 1 the words of the preacher. Verse 2, vanity of vanities, saith the preacher. Verse 12, I, the preacher, was king over Israel and Jerusalem. So Solomon has taken that position. In the book, Solomon, I do not believe, is venting out of frustration, but from personal experience, he is telling where true satisfaction, true fulfillment, and happiness can be found. And he spends much of the book, of course, telling us where you won't find it. And he does this by personal experience. He, of course, had everything. But he lived his life, for the most part, apart from God. And everything proved to be empty. So it's his thoughts and reflections upon a life lived apart from God. A life without God is the focus and the emphasis. So in the book, he is recalling his own earthly pursuits that he had apart from God. We know that Solomon traveled down many roads in his search for peace, his search for purpose, his search for fulfillment. In Ecclesiastes, he's looking back upon that life, a life apart from God, his pursuits apart from God. And I believe he speaks with a heart of repentance and regret for living his life that way. So it's of extreme importance when reading Ecclesiastes that we do not lose sight of the primary objective of the book, which establishes the importance and truth of Ecclesiastes 12, verse 13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. This is where Solomon has been brought. Fear God, keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. So we need to keep that, his objective, in mind. He is showing us that our duty in life is to fear God, keep his commandments. That is, God is to be our life. So this section that we're going to look at for the next several weeks begins in verse 2 and goes through verse 26 of chapter 2. And we could entitle it The Search for Satisfaction. Again, Ecclesiastes is extremely difficult to outline. There is no story flow to it whatsoever. But I believe what we have in these verses, beginning with verse 2 to the end of chapter 2, is the search for satisfaction or fulfillment. So he makes a thesis statement in verses 2 and 3. He says, "Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher. Vanity of vanities. All is vanity." Again, that needs to be kept in line with fear God, keep His commandments, the whole duty of man. If you live apart from God, vanity of vanities. All is vanity. What profit, and this leads to a question, what profit hath a man of all his labor, which he taketh under the sun? So Solomon, after introducing himself in verse 1, makes a emphatic declaration. Vanity of vanities. Vanity of vanities. All is vanity. Again, what is said here is almost like the text verse of the sermon. It establishes the groundwork of the central idea. It provides some structure for the sermon. Again, when considering this statement, verse 2, we need to realize that it is not Solomon's aim, it's not his aim to corroborate what he says here, but to demonstrate, to prove his conclusion, which again is chapter 12, verse 13. Fear God, keep His commandments. This is the whole duty of man. This is what he's establishing. This is the point that he is getting to. So Solomon, in his life, again, he has riches, he has everything that man could possibly have in earthly things. And he finds that with all these earthly things, life apart from God is empty. He found that earthly pleasure, earthly wisdom, earthly inheritance, earthly labor, earthly greed, earthly renown, the amusements of the world, the honor of the world, and all the yearnings of earthly life apart from God is vanity of vanities. Vanity of vanities. All is vanity. Not only vain, but vanity itself. It's the very definition of vanity. Notice there in verse 2 that he repeats his assertion, vanity of vanities. He repeats it to emphasize the absolute certainty of it. Solomon has no doubt in his mind that life apart from God is empty. He was certain because he experienced it. He experienced it personally. We should not have to experience it. We should be wise enough to listen to what Solomon says and realize that we're not going to find satisfaction, fulfillment, and happiness in these earthly things. That's not where it is. So a life apart from God is vanity. By his question in verse 3, he's telling us life apart from God yields no substantial profit, no lasting profit. Now the word vanity occurs 33 times in 28 verses in Ecclesiastes. Here through this section of Ecclesiastes, he uses the word again and again and again. Notice we've already read verse 2. Notice verse 14. Verse 14. I have seen all the works that are done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and vexation of spirit. In chapter 2, verse 1, I said in mine heart, go to now, I will prove thee with myrrh, therefore enjoy pleasure, and behold, this also is vanity. Verse 11, then I looked on all the works that my hands had wrought, and on the labor that I had labored to do, and behold, all was vanity and vexation of spirit, and there is no profit under the sun. Verse 15, then I said in my heart, as it happeneth to the fool, so it happeneth even to me. And why was I then more wise? Then I said in my heart that this also is vanity. Verse 7, therefore I hated life. A lot of people there today. Because the work that is wrought under the sun is grievous unto me. For all is vanity and vexation of spirit. Again, he's looking at this as a life apart from God. In verse 19, and who knoweth whether he shall be a wise man or a fool? Yet shall he have rule over all my labor wherein I have labored, and wherein I have showed myself wise under the sun. This is also vanity. Verse 21, for there is a man whose labor is in wisdom, and in knowledge, and in equity. Yet to a man hath not labored therein shall he leave it for his portion. This also is vanity, and a great evil. In verse 23, for all his days are sorrows, and his travail grief. Yea, his heart taketh not rest in the night. This is also vanity. And then verse 26, for God giveth to a man that is good in his sight wisdom and knowledge and joy, but to the sinner he giveth travail, to gather and to heap up, that he may give to him that is good before God. This also is vanity and vexation of spirit. So in this section, he uses the word vanity occurs 12 times in 10 verses in chapters 1 and 2. And the word vanities occurs 4 times in 3 verses in the book of Ecclesiastes. So the word vanity is translated from the Hebrew word hebel, and it means breath or vapor. It conveys the idea of that which is without substance. That which is without substance. You cannot build upon vapor. And you cannot build a life upon vapor. Only a fool would even think that you could. But that's how most people live. That's how most of God's people live. They think they can build something upon vapor. The truth is, they haven't been convinced. They haven't been brought to the point where Solomon is, where they really believe that everything outside of God, apart from God, is vanity. They don't really believe that. They believe there's something they can build upon. Notice in James chapter 4. James chapter 4, verse 14. wherein you know not what shall be on the morrow. For what is your life? It is even a vapor. Appears for a little time, and then vanisheth away. It's temporary. Vapor is temporary. Vapor is uncertain. It quickly passes. That's how it is with life. There's no stability in vapor. Can't build upon it. So the Hebrew word hebel in Ecclesiastes conveys different aspects of vanity. And you have to just notice the context in which it's used throughout the book. But it speaks sometimes of that which is unproductive. It speaks sometimes of that which is just absolutely useless. It speaks of that which is empty. It's transitory. It's incomprehensible. It's mysterious. So the word vanity and vanities is true of everything in this world when pursued has the sufficiency and the fulfillment of life. When you think something in life, it doesn't matter what it is all you need, and you think this will give you fulfillment for your entire life, you're seeking that which is vapor. It's empty. It's not going to produce what you think it's going to produce. So Solomon, in his use of the words vanity and vanities, he's not saying that there is no enjoyment or degree of happiness or degree of satisfaction to be had in the things of the world. There most certainly is. We all know that. We find a degree of enjoyment in the things of the Lord, and we ought to thank God. God gives us things in the world that gives us a degree of enjoyment. And that gives us a degree of fulfillment. So Solomon's not saying that all earthly things bring no joy. He's not saying that. We all know that not to be so. But when the things of life, when the things of the world, it doesn't matter what it is, it can be people, it can be things, it doesn't matter. When the things of life and the things of the world are considered to be the ultimate, I've got it all now. This is all I need. It will be proven to be vanity or empty. And even if it gives you joy throughout your life, you can't take it with you. In the end, it proves to be vanity. So to further emphasize this fact, Solomon uses the words vexation of spirit. He says, I sought satisfaction and happiness and fulfillment apart from God. I was oblivious to God. And I sought satisfaction in things that could give no satisfaction. And he says it was vexation of spirit. He uses that phrase 10 times throughout Ecclesiastes. Vexation of spirit. He uses it several times here in chapter 1 and 2 in this section that we're dealing with. Notice in chapter 1, verse 14, last part of the verse, all is vanity and vexation of spirit. Verse 17, I gave my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. I perceive that this also is vexation of spirit. And then we see it in verse 11 of chapter 2, verse 17, verse 22, verse 26. Vexation of spirit. It conveys the idea of that which disturbs, that which annoys, that which agitates and troubles, and even torments. Those who seek happiness, fulfillment, satisfaction apart from God, that's the key, apart from God, in things, they have vexation of spirit. Life becomes very disturbing and agitating. So, it has the meaning of that which is irritating, that which is afflicting and troubling. Life then becomes vexation of spirit. You don't have to be in this world very long, and you realize most people, the vast majority, are not happy. They may have all kinds of things, but they're not happy. Most people are very annoyed, very agitated. Why is that? Well, it's because they live their life chasing the wind. And that's what you're doing. If you dismiss God from the picture and you think this is going to give me happiness, and you find out, well, that didn't do it, so I'll go to this. That didn't do it, so I'll go to this. It gets pretty agitating after a while. Chasing the wind. You can never catch it. And even if you could, you wouldn't know what to do with it after you caught it. So, the pursuing of things, it could be the pursuit of success. Most have a wrong definition of success, therefore a wrong pursuit. Most think of success as attaining goals. But read Joshua chapter 1. Success is when you do what God says. That's success. You live your life apart from God, that's failure. I don't care what you attain. It's failure. It's emptiness. But again, most of God's people don't believe that. So they, too, with the rest of the world, continue to chase the wind. The pursuit of wealth, or the pursuit of pleasure, for happiness and fulfillment. It's like chasing the wind. It's looking for personal fulfillment in all the wrong places. And concerning this, Solomon says, vanity of vanities. Vanity of vanities. All is vanity. In verse 3, he expands upon this with a question. What profit hath a man of all his labor? Again, this is labor apart from God, which he taketh under the sun. This is a question asked by one who has pursued personal fulfillment in earthly pleasure. He has pursued personal fulfillment in earthly wealth and wisdom, in earthly successes. One could look at Solomon and most would say, now there is a successful individual. He has everything, but he's miserable. because he's living life apart from God. He's pursuing fulfillment in personal power, personal renown, amusement, etc. And he's irritated. And he's frustrated. I thought if I got this, then I'd be happy. When that didn't happen, I thought, well, I'll go for this, and then I'll have it. And he attained that, and he was still empty. So he asks this question, in a tone of irritation, no doubt, in a tone of frustration and confusion. What profit is there? What's the use? What's the use? Now notice in this question, the words profit, labor, and under the sun. Profit, labor, under the sun. The word profit occurs 6 times in 6 verses in Ecclesiastes. And it comes from the Hebrew word yitron, also translated in Ecclesiastes 2:13 as excelleth. So it's a word that, like our English word profit, that conveys the idea of that which is left over. It's a surplus. It's a gain. The question that Solomon asks here is really the same that Jesus asked, not for himself, in Matthew 16:26. If you go there, Matthew 16, verse 26. For what is a man profited if he shall gain the whole world and lose his soul? Just in those words, the word gain, of course, is equivalent to profit. But just in those words, you cannot help but see that the soul is of far more importance than the whole world can provide. And lose his own soul. Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? And many, of course, the unsaved do it all the time. They trade away their soul for things of the world. God's people aren't much different. They do the same thing. So we have to be convinced that apart from God, life is unprofitable. No matter what you attain, in the end, what does it amount to? Nothing. It's all vanity. Again, we've never seen a U-Haul trailer in a cemetery. You can't take it with you. Can't take it with you. You leave it behind. It's all vanity in the big picture. You also have the word labor. That word occurs 23 times in 21 verses in Ecclesiastes. It appears several times here in chapters 1 and 2. I believe it's inclusive of both physical and mental labor. It's toil to the point of exhaustion. Again, it conveys the idea of grief, frustration, weariness, and that which is very burdensome. And when you spend your life chasing the wind, you're going to be exhausted. You're going to go in endless circles. You're going to be frustrated. You're going to be weary. And that's what Solomon is saying. You strive and strive and strive to find fulfillment where fulfillment cannot be attained. It's a labor. It's a physical labor, it's a mental labor, but it will wear you out. And for much of Solomon's life, it defined his life. And he's brought to this, it's all vanity, apart from God. The next phrase is under the sun in that question. It occurs 29 times in 27 verses. Here in chapter 1 and 2, it occurs over and over. Chapter 1, verse 3, verse 9, verse 14. It occurs again in chapter 2, verse 11, verse 17, verse 18, verse 19, verse 20, verse 22. And then several times throughout the book of Ecclesiastes. Under the sun. Corresponding to that phrase is under heaven, or under the heaven. And that occurs 3 times. Twice here in chapter 1 and 2. Chapter 1, verse 13. Chapter 2, verse 3. And then it occurs again in chapter 3, verse 1. They are phrases referring to life upon earth. Life upon earth. But it also refers to Solomon's view of life apart from God. It is a life from a temporal perspective, as it's used here in Ecclesiastes. We should look at life from a spiritual perspective, regardless of what it is. Our perspective of life should be spiritual, not temporal. Temporal leads to vanity. Temporal is life within the physical, the tangible world. It's the horizontal view of life. It is the view of life apart from God. We're not to view life that way. Life is to be vertical for the child of God. The whole world is moving horizontally. Everything around you is moving horizontally. So it's very easy to get caught up in the current. It's very easy to think, well, that's the way it should be. But for the child of God, life is vertical. In a horizontal world, that's not easy. If everything else is moving vertically, that's not that difficult. But everything's moving horizontally. So it's very difficult to be in a vertical mindset. But that's where the child of God is to be. And if not, guess what? You're chasing the wind. Vanity of vanities. Vexation of spirit. And Solomon is saying that a life lived pursuing personal fulfillment apart from God is very hard. It's a painful work. It will cause you pain. It will cause you agony. It is a life of disillusionment. It is a life of disappointment. And eventually it's a life of bitterness. A lot of bitter people in the world today. Again, Solomon is brought to this truth, that the things, the possessions, the attainments, the accomplishments, the pleasures of life are not what brings personal fulfillment, but a life for God. Again, it is, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God, keep His commandments. This is the whole duty of man. The sooner we learn that truth, the better off we'll be. You don't want to live your life and come to that truth at the very latter end of it. It's a little late. It's a little late. So God help us. Let's look to the Lord. Heavenly Father, again,